much for joining me. I'm really excited to be part of the Altenew and Pretty Pink Posh collaboration blog hop. This blog hop is filled with a ton of inspiration and fun prizes and also lots of stocks because we have a great bunch of designers that are participating in the hop, both from Pretty Pink Posh and Altenew's design teams. I'm going to be sharing a card featuring products from both companies. This card features the gorgeous new stamp set from Altenew called Sketched Evergreen, and I'm also going to be pairing it with a couple of Pretty Pink Posh products, including the Holiday Greetings stamp set and also a gorgeous new mix that is part of Pretty Pink Posh's newest release from October. In this video, I'm going to be sharing how to do some fun watercolor stamping using your Zig Clean color markers, and I'll also be showing you how you can create this absolutely awesome, realistic snow effect on your cards. So first, let's take a look at the products. The stamp set on the left is the Sketched Evergreen set from Altenew. The set contains these absolutely awesome detailed trees. And then on the right, we've got the Pretty Pink Posh Holiday Greetings set. We'll be using both of these products in today's card, and I really love that this tree is so large because it fills up the card front really nicely. I really like that. So I'm going to mount this into my Mini Misty stamping tool, and I've got some Canson XL watercolor paper on the right hand side, which is what I'm going to be stamping my tree onto. I'm taking my Zig Clean color markers, and I'm going to very carefully scrub over the top of the stamp with the markers. And this is going to allow me to create a watercolor on top of the stamp, which I will then be able to transfer over to my watercolor paper. Now, as I'm applying the marker onto my paper, I'm being careful not to mess up the bristles too much. I'm trying to work along the side of the bristles so that way they won't end up getting bent. I just misted it with a bit of water to get the ink to reactivate, and then I went ahead and stamped it down onto my watercolor paper. I'm going to do the same thing with the second level of the tree. I lined this up over top of the solid image of the tree that we just stamped, just to make sure that the placement was lined up well, and then I went ahead and mounted it into my Misty tool. And I'm going to take some different colors of greens to add some variation to the coloring on this tree. You can use just one color if you'd like, but I wanted to have quite a few so that way I could get a much more variegated look. I spritzed it with a bit more water, and then I went ahead and stamped it down. Now when I'm applying the water, I'm kind of just gauging how much water is sitting on top of the stamp. If you use less water, you'll have a more detailed image like I have here, but if you use more water, you'll end up having a more watered down image and it'll run a lot more. It won't have quite as much detail. So it basically depends on what you're looking for. Now while I was talking, I sketched out a bit of snow shadows on the ground. I just used a very light blue marker, and then I'm going to start working on the sky. Now the sky I'm doing very loosely. I'm just basically applying some scribbles of color along the bottom portion of my panel, and then I'm using my water brush to blend this up towards the top. However, I don't want to go too far because I want to add in other colors, so I let that go up just a little bit, and then I took a dry rag and lifted off some of the color to get a more translucent and delicate tone to the sky. This card ended up reminding me of those vintage watercolor scenes that you see on old Christmas cards. I thought that was what this reminded me of. I thought it was really pretty. So I'm now taking a bit of pink marker and I'm doing the same thing. I'm blending out the color with the water. I'm using quite a bit of water as I blend this out. And then I went ahead and lifted off the extra color with my dry rag. Same thing with the blue. I'm adding that along the outlines of the tree. And now I'm going to start working on bringing color in from the edges. So I'm taking some more Zig Clean color markers and I'm blending that out towards the inner areas of this panel. I'm leaving a bit of a white border as I do this because I thought that would add to the vintage feel of this watercolor scene. So I went ahead and left that, but you could add the watercolor all the way to the edges. So after my watercoloring was done, I'm taking my EK Success powder tool and I'm prepping the surface of my paper with that so that I can cut down on any static cling or any wet areas that might still be a little damp. I dried this paper completely before moving on to this step, but I just wanted to make sure because we had so much water going on with this project. I stamped down the sentiment, which is a combination of the Holiday Greetings set from Pretty Pink Posh and also a smaller sentiment from the Sketched Evergreens. I love glitter embossing powders, and the ones from Tonic Studios in their Nouveau product line have become my favorite. I love them. This glitter embossing powder captures so much detail, so much more than other glitter embossing powders I've had in the past. And I really love how it has that gorgeous, glittery, sparkly appearance. It's perfect for holiday cards and for cards year-round. So here's a look at that glittery sentiment. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that I was going to show you how I created this dimensional snow on the tree. This is so much fun. I actually did this technique in a video probably about 2 months ago now. And I loved it so much. And I wanted to share with you this technique so that way you can get some ideas for using your embossing powders to create some really fun effects, and also as a way to be able to add detail to your stamped images. So I'm taking some liquid glue. You can use any liquid glue for this technique. I'm using PPA Matte because it's my favorite, but if you have Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, definitely go ahead and do that, or if you have another liquid glue, that's fine as well. I'm basically applying some scribbles of the glue along areas of the tree where I think the snow would be resting. And this is just going to give the tree a more realistic appearance because, of course, trees always have snow on them in the wintertime. You'll see that I'm sticking some along the ground as well. I didn't end up liking that, and I wanted to show this to you because while the glue is still slightly damp underneath the embossing that we'll be doing, you'll still be able to rub off that glue, and the embossing powder won't stick to it because the glue is still wet and it'll come off with the glue. So if you find you don't like something, you still have a little bit of time while the glue is drying underneath that embossing powder layer, and this is what I did. So after I applied the embossing powder, which is the Hero Arts White Puff embossing powder, it's a newer embossing powder from them. However, you can use other embossing powders for this technique as well. I just applied that to the tree, and now I'm going ahead and heat setting this. Now as you heat set this, you're going to notice that the embossing powder is going to bubble up a little bit, and it might even pop. It might have some air bubbles that pop. That's okay. You want to keep heating this until the embossing powder has completely heat set. The glue underneath will still be slightly damp in spots, and that was the case for the snow on the ground, so I was able to rub that off. But once the glue dries, that embossing powder is not going to come off. So just keep that in mind as you're heat setting this, that you do have a little bit of wiggle room right after heat setting the embossing powder. So I'm now going to take some new sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. This is a great Christmas mix. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got some of my favorite iridescent sequins in it. Really, really fun. And then it also has some really big snowflakes in the mix as well, which I really think are beautiful. And you can get the snowflakes in a separate sequin mix. So I just layered the snowflake with a star sequin, also from Pretty Pink Posh, to create a really nice ornament to the top of my tree. So now I want to go ahead and start finishing off this card. I wanted to add a little bit of detailing to the edges of the panel. However, I didn't want to do any die-cut stitching edges. So I decided to go ahead and do some scoring with my Martha Stewart scoring board. However, if I had been thinking, I probably would have done this before I attached the sequins onto my tree, because the star here, as you can see, is going to get in the way as we go ahead and start adding some of these scored borders. I did a scored border 1/4 of an inch in from the edges of the card, and then I also did another scoring line 1/8 of an inch in from that first score line. So I went ahead and created this nice little border around the panel. This just helps finish off the card nicely and gives it a little bit of detail without being distracting. Now I also want to create a card base because this card panel that we did all of our watercoloring on is a little bit bigger than an A2 size card. So I'm taking a panel here that is 5.5 inches tall. It's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches tall, which is the same size as the watercolored panel. I'm scoring it 1/2 of an inch down, and I'm adding some ATG adhesive to the back side. Now I'm taking a second panel, this is going to be the front of my card, and I cut it about 1/4 of an inch larger on both the vertical and horizontal sides. So it's about 4.5 by 5 3/4. And attaching those together creates a nice perfect card base for my card panel. Now I want to add some detail to the card base, so I'm taking this fun circle background stamp from Hero Arts, and I'm inking it up in some Simon Says Stamp clear ink. I'm going to lay my card panel face down on top of that inked up stamp, and I'm going to take a piece of scratch paper and apply this over top of my card base so that way I can rub across it without having to worry about getting ink on the back side of my card. Once I've pressed that impression down onto my card, I'm able to lift off the paper and have this really beautiful watermark design on my panel, which adds just a little bit of variation to the background of this card, and again, it's not distracting to what else we've got on in this card as well. Now I want to add a little bit of snow effect, so I'm taking some Nuvo Crystal drops in both the White Blizzard and the White Gloss. The White Blizzard is a glitter crystal drops bottle, and then the White Gloss is just a white enamel. So here's a look at the finished card. I think it turned out fabulous. I love how these products from both Pretty Pink, Posh, and Altenew paired up so well together to create this really beautiful holiday card. I also think that these techniques are really fun and can be incorporated in so many different ways in your card projects. You could do this snow on so many different types of winter-themed cards, and I think it would really add a lot of really cool detail to your finished designs. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and got some fun inspiration from it. If you head on over to my blog, I have more information on a fabulous, and I mean fabulous, giveaway that is sponsored by both Pretty Pink, Posh, and Altenew. There is over $200 worth of prizes in this giveaway, so I want you to go on over to my blog and check it out because you don't want to miss it. Also, make sure you head on over to my blog to get more information on the blog hop. Again, we've got so many fun designers participating. I think you're really going to have a lot of fun hopping along and seeing some really great inspiration featuring 2 fabulous companies. If you enjoyed this video, here's another one you might like featuring watercoloring techniques. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below and head on over to my blog for more inspiration. You can also find me on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, as well as my blog. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again soon.